Immortality's premise is uncovering what happened to Marissa Marcel. It's right there in the game's about page. But within this game, that is mired in mystery and intrigue, the real question is, who is the one? A question that, despite my previous video literally being titled Immortality Story Explained, I could not wholly answer. But since spending more time with the game, since the discourse has grown, and since I got a chance to sit down and talk to the one herself, the wonderful Charlotta Mohlin, I'm a lot closer to the answer. So we are diving into Immortality spoilers straight off the bat. So let's get that out of the way first. I am approaching this video as if you have played Immortality or watched someone play it, and you are familiar with the concept of the game, the films in the game, and the main characters. If not, my previous video, Immortality Story Kind of Explained, I dive into the synopses of the films, the characters, particularly Marissa's journey. So if you want to be reminded of it, or you want more detail on that, please go check out my first video first. Watch about the first 20 to 30 minutes of it before you get to the section titled Who is the One? Because that's where I was about to say it falls apart. We'll call it open-ended and interpretational, which is still the case. I wasn't just half-assing it. But since then, I've been able to look into it in a lot more detail, to the point where I actually sat down with Charlotta Mohlin, the wonderful Charlotta Mohlin, as she is, I think it's fair to say, best placed to answer questions on the one, seeing as she played her. And in my haste, my giddiness to talk to Charlotta, I f***ed up the recording, which wasn't entirely my fault. The record function in Google, I didn't realize, is locked behind a paywall. So that was my first intention. Realized I couldn't do that. So I was scrambling to get OBS set up, and I forgot to record my own audio. So I can't show you the full recording because it's just me mouthing with rather over-exaggerated hand gestures without you knowing anything I'm talking about, which is kind of the case for most of my videos. So I'm gonna have to get a little bit cute with the edit and kind of weave the questions I asked in the actual interview into the present, which may sound a little bit forced, but I have faith, and I think we're gonna pull through, don't you, Charlotta?
Yeah.
Wonderful. How are you?
I had no idea what we were doing.
Oh, she didn't actually say that. I've cut that together. I don't know if that's going to work out like I had it in my head. Probably not. So let's move on. Let's dive into the longest thread in Immortality's constantly unraveling plot. Who is the one?
I think you're right there, where they are physical beings, but they have been around forever. They're not humans. They take on human forms, and have been doing that for centuries. And the difference between us, me, and the other is we view humanity very differently, and I'm quite interested in them, whilst he thinks that it's just a lesser species that we really shouldn't have anything to do with. And I think it's beautiful, and I like your interpretation of it, because a lot of it is this interpretation of art, and I think you can interpret it in many different ways, which I thought was really beautiful with your video, because it is so many different things. It is about art, and about how women have been treated in this industry, and it was fantastic to actually be able to tell the truth. That is something that my character can do, because she doesn't care. Like, no one, I don't need a director. I don't need any of these things, and I can tell them the truth.
The one and the other are supernatural beings, be they astral, celestial, biblical, demonic, we don't know. But they are beings that predate humanity, able to live on indefinitely providing they have a host. Parasitic in nature, they latch on to their host, not only inhabiting their physical form, but sharing their memories, perhaps even their beliefs and worldviews. The one and the other have done this for a long, long time, as we see a few of their previous hosts in Immortality's reversed footage. We hear of others, the starring cast of the Bible, the oldest and greatest story of all.
Was dead without past. The ascension was left to their imagination.
The One is fascinated by humans, how they are driven by instinctual desires, sex and survival, but equally driven by abstract concepts, love, power, religion, and they all combine in the oldest of human practices, the creation of art and the telling of stories. Something only mortal beings can do, perhaps, our obsession with beginnings, middles, and ends, with new beginnings and possible futures tied to our own mortality. The other does not share such an enamored perspective on humanity. They find humans interesting, but ultimately as inferior copies of themselves. They failed to elevate humanity to their level, in perhaps another reference to Jesus on the cross and dying for our sins, but in the other's eyes, it was no use. An egocentrism only a supernatural being could muster, you might think, yet such an interest can be found in our own kind too. Identical in 99% of our DNA, but it's the differences that stand out to us. The role of a supernatural, vampiric tourist is not a common one, I think it's fair to say. On asking Charlotta how she was able to tap in to the character of the One, she had this to say.
Well, I talked a lot to Sam, like when I just booked the part. We had a 2-hour conversation when he just basically talked about the character. And oddly enough, it all started to make sense. Like I got to know the character so well that all these weird things, it made sense to me. So I got to know her really, really well. And that was also a bit of a collaborative effort because Sam is very different in terms of other directors. He doesn't micromanage. He trusts his casting, and then he kind of just looks at you and he's like, yeah, I think that's good. Okay. And then you're like, what was it good? Was it good? Yeah, circle that one. And you're like, okay.
I mean, there's nothing I could have said to make this scene any better either. I mean, what do you say? Can we go even more crazed? Be even scarier? I can see why Sambalo was confident in the casting.
There's a character that suits me because I'm just like a puppy dog, Manon, she says, like, see, she's my Swedish fluffy bunny. Because she had some friends that were like, oh, we're so worried. We're going to meet her and she's so scary. And then I come in and it's like, but I have this side of me that like I don't let out, obviously, of of quite a bit of darkness. That's always been there, and which kind of allowed me to access places that that might be difficult for other people to access. So it was almost cathartic. It was like therapy. You're like, okay, I can just let it rip.
Now we know a little more of their origins, let's look at the One's journey through Immortality's 3 films. The One finds Marissa alone in a field. The One already has a host at this point, and we see how they transfer from one body to the next. But we also see the first interactions between Marissa and the One's true form, presumably as the wires of their psyches entangle. The One's new life as Marissa Marcel begins in unassuming fashion, integrating into life in France and later England. Arthur Fisher asks Marissa to audition for his upcoming film Ambrosio. The offer actually goes to the One, of course, and she watches some of Fisher's earlier films. She is captivated by them, their ability to compress the passage of time and send a message. When she accepts Fisher's offer and moves to America to start filming Ambrosio, however, she realizes his true intent.
He wanted to sculpt me. Movies were like a sexual mania to him.
During Ambrosio, Marissa and John Jurek become romantically involved. You could point to several reasons why. Simple physical attraction, Marissa rebelling against her perceived innocence from the rest of Ambrosio's cast, but it seems the One is also infatuated with John, or at least his artistic vision. Much like Marissa adopts the role of Matilda to embolden her sexuality, by the time Minsky is underway, it's the One that wants to inhabit the role of Franny as deeply as possible.
I wanted Franny to be real, and I realized that that was only possible if we looked at her in the right way.
But the Other would fissure a rift between the One, Marissa, and John. The Other makes several appearances in Minsky, and we see their differing views on humanity reach boiling point. The One speeds down the path of the artist, connecting with the character, learning from the director, living and breathing the art. This is compounded by their possession of Marissa. They are inhabiting two roles at once and unwilling to let either of them go. The Other pulls in the opposite direction. Their prejudice towards humans manifests as skepticism toward John, as cynicism toward the One, and they go as far to possess Carl to get between the two of them.
Is a child playing?
As the One, enveloped in the role of Franny, is pushed closer and closer to the edge, ultimately, life imitates art.
I'm the one who killed Minsky.
Killing the Other means killing their host as well, which is enough to close down the shooting of Minsky. But with the Other out of the way, the One hopes to return to some sense of normality, the enjoyment she found during the start of filmmaking. But too much has happened for things to remain the same. Trusting in John, the One reveals who they really are.
Should I be scared of you?
This isn't the reaction that I wanted.
A cascade of emotions, sadness, hurt, self-loathing, hatred, all bare to the surface, and in their anger, they consume John. And I think, but cannot confirm, that this makes the One lose Marissa, as there are a couple of scenes referencing this.
I consumed him efficiently. I didn't have time to think what it meant to lose Marissa.
Nothing is known of the One or the Other's whereabouts for the next 30 years. It seems they go into a state of hibernation while still occupying the host. But at some point, probably in the mid-90s, Arthur Fisher is reaching the end of his life. We find out that he stole the negatives for Ambrosio, preventing the film from being released. Exactly why he did this is not clear, but on his deathbed, his conscience gets the best of him and he gives the negatives to John. Rewatching the film, the One pines for Marissa, the innocence and the purity she showed in her younger years, and remembers what Marissa had become.
I realized I missed Marissa and spontaneously brought her back.
So the One returns, this time possessing both John and Marissa, to film Two of Everything in 1999. Alongside the confusion and the fatigue that follows waking after such a long rest, they are now occupying two bodies at once. A dramatic irony, then, that to us, it seems like Marissa is burning out from the intensity of playing two lead roles. It's the One that is burning out, assuming two bodies. Two of Everything is an apt title.
It was my story.
Not only this, but another has returned in 1999. Amy Archer sees Carl's death on screen, and through this, the Other is reborn.
I watched him die on the screen.
And I was reborn.
They were able to consume Amy through the screen, something unprecedented for their kind. After the Other's rebirth, their relationship with the One changes drastically. The Other is not the same. Their possession of Amy feels different. More complete, perhaps, more unified, a coexistence rather than a consumption. Realizing this, the Other's outlook on humanity has changed. They regret how they acted. The solution was not to elevate humanity, but to elevate both species to create something more. It takes time for the One to grasp this, as they're channeling all their energy into Two of Everything. It is to be their magnum opus, and it will take all the strength they can manage. The Other urges them to rest, to slow down, but the One refuses.
It's late. You need to sleep. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Let's go.
From mental exhaustion to physical pain, the body shutting down, the One will not stop.
Burning the candle at both ends.
But the well is empty. They collapse while filming. Marissa is seen frozen in place, and even when removing John from later scenes so they can focus purely on Marissa, the burden is simply too much to bear. Finally, at their lowest point, the One realizes they are fighting a losing battle. They cannot continue.
Let me die the way you died and love you more.
Their last request is to take on this new form as the other has. Rebirth requires a true death, a complete death.
Fire is the killer. You don't come back from complete cremation,
You're having this internal experience that's just like more than anything you've ever experienced. Like you're rewriting your own code, but you're not saying anything, you're not doing anything, like, how am I going to do that? And then there's also these really long shots where, like, and then you do that for like 2 minutes, and then we jump to this part, and then you keep doing it in 2 minutes, and then you come to the camera, and then you just stand there, you stare into the camera forever and ever, and it worked out. Like, at that point, you're so entrenched in the character that you're like, okay, yeah, this was happening.
Like the other before them, their death is seen on screen and they are born anew. I am their host, as are you.
I'm part of you now.
And through the burning of me and the sort of rewriting of my code that happens, all of a sudden I'm part of all of you. Like anyone who plays, yeah. And so then I don't have to take over other people's bodies. I'm there, and I can see it all.
For as long as we discuss this game and its story, the One will live on. So why is there sadness behind their eyes? They achieved immortality, but at what cost? Let's return to the question, what happened to Marissa Marcel? I mean, that's the aim of the game, right? But it's a question that has two answers, I think. Either Marissa Marcel died in France as a young girl when she was consumed by the One, or Marissa gained immortality just as the One did, as the two are forever entwined. How much of Marissa is left when we see her? From the young aspiring artist that plays Matilda to the weathered actress that plays Maria and Heather. That's as much the One as it is Marissa, surely. And yet the One changes too. They are not an omnipresent being. They evolve over time and experience.
The sensory overload of you with your own experience, then taking on someone else with all of their experience. And I know I say at a certain point that after Marissa went away, I really missed her. This was someone that I took over, that I loved her innocence, naivete, this purity that she starts with. And I kind of I want to find that again. I want to get back to that. So it's definitely her, all of her traits. And then, I'm sort of but this is how I really feel. But yeah, she definitely, there's a lot of Marissa in that character.
So not only is Manon Gage acting the part of Marissa Marcel, which is impressive enough, she is an actress playing an actress who is being possessed by a spirit. That's a lot of levels to put into one performance. Whether longing for the innocence Marissa once had and wishing that for themselves, or guilty that they were in part responsible for her change, the regret is palpable in some of the One scenes.
But this song, it's just the whole story behind it, and the song in itself is written in a way where it's gut wrenching, and the way it was set up was I had watched Lou Reed perform it and looked up Candy Darling, and then you're doing the lip sync, and then the song just goes on, and my only direction from Sam was, and then you completely break down. I was like, okay, yes, sure. But having that song and being in that character, it wasn't a problem. It really wasn't.
My first video opened with the line, "This is the tragedy of Marissa Marcel." Despite learning so much more about Immortality's true story since then, I think it's now even more appropriate. She was never in control of her future. The trail of blood and torment left in her wake was not of her own doing. To outsiders, it seemed that she was consumed by Hollywood, but she had already been consumed. Does that make all of Marissa's experiences false? Does it invalidate the relationship she made, her growth as an actress, all the things I mentioned in my previous video? I don't think so, or maybe I'd rather not believe so. Perhaps the one operates on a subconscious level. Marissa is still in control, but there is a voice inside that guides her decisions. Find someone that does something they love to do and ask them, why do you do it? Why do you keep going in the face of adversity when so often it gives nothing back? Often, they can't answer. They just do. They cannot envision living life another way. There is something else calling to them. The tragedy is that once the one consumes us, the real Marissa is gone. Another human checkpoint that got the one from lifetime to lifetime. The final checkpoint before true immortality, the transcendence of art, of race, being, consciousness. But not for the real Marissa Marcel. To the outsider, she was a casualty of Hollywood, sculpted by the perversion of the male gaze. But to us, those that know her true story, was she not a casualty of the one's grandiose ambitions? If so, perhaps my initial interpretation of the one wasn't so far off. Whether human or something else entirely, such a narrow focus on the thing you want most has the potential to leave destruction in its path. Or perhaps the truth is that even supernatural beings aren't immune to the allure of Hollywood. Does this make the one the antagonist? Should we fear them, loathe them, pity them? I'll leave that for you to decide. Art's purpose is to be perceived, to evoke an emotional response. The best art often does so in layers. We have surface-level scenes that do this, our reactions to Ambrosio or Minsky as if they were real films. Behind the scenes, we see the emotional toil Marissa undergoes at the hands of Arthur Fisher and John Jurek. We see how she is mistreated, a parallel to the real-life objectification of women in cinema. Thin wisps of mystery keep us engaged, and piecing it all together, we find brand new motives and truths that completely flip the script. But as we continue to bury to Immortality's center, we find it rotting. Why do people subject themselves to the churn of the Hollywood machine? For the pursuit of true art, perhaps? To exist beyond our physical form? I can relate to that on a much smaller scale. The sense that these videos, and hopefully their messages, will outlive my own body. That brings me comfort because such videos are crafted and refined. They show how my brain works when given time to gesticulate on things, which I have much more trouble doing in the moment because that same brain is busy worrying about what people think of me. I know that's shallow, probably lies at the intersection of anxiety and ego. But just as art and stories are one of the oldest of human practices, there is something instinctual about judging them, the people who make them, the people in them. Such motivations make for fine fuel. We see people like Fisher as the problem, those who abuse their position of power. People like John, who sacrifice the well-being of others in their own selfish pursuits.
The one has this fascination with humanity. She's also, she wants to be part of it. And through Marissa, that's how she's going to be part of it. And in terms of that, it's actually finding, humans that understand you, that eventually you can maybe tell them who you really are and be accepted in the human world. And she feels that, like I feel that, but, that ends up getting, I end up getting very disappointed at the end with John, and it wasn't, and like so often in this industry, it wasn't me that he wanted. It wasn't like really get to know me. It was about making art, and using someone as a means of making art.
And we judge these people from the outside, but that itself is an integral cog in the machine. It creates interest, and interest brings eyes to the screen and money in pockets. Hollywood may prey on the naivety of an aspiring artist. It may even prey on the intrigue of supernatural beings. It is a ravenous predator, but we feed on the scraps. We consume whatever the machine spits out. We are the proof that Hollywood works, and Immortality knows it.
I think that's really beautiful.
Oh, thanks. It's very kind of you. I really wish I could share the whole interview with Charlotta because she is just wonderful, and I cannot thank her enough for sitting down and letting me unpick her brains. Pick her brains? Unpick? Unpick sounds a lot more kind of gross. Anyway, I hopefully will have chance to speak to Charlotta again once a little bit further down the line, because this game is still so new. It's only been out a month. I think it just feels longer for me because I cannot stop digging into it. And despite making these videos, you would think that would clear things up, but it actually just brings more questions. Is the one and the other really Jesus and Mary? You're telling me that? You're gonna just say the Bible's, just throw the Bible out, be like, that was just vampires messing around. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and if I do get a chance to talk to Charlotta again, or anyone from Immortality, I'll be sure to circle those and ask away, because I still think there's stuff going on that we don't know, man. But you know what? It's fine to have interpretations and questions. We don't need to know everything. That's what makes art so special, and Immortality's art dangerous. So I should have just ended the video on that kind of nice little scripted bit, but here I am. So I guess I'm just gonna stop recording now.